Hey guys, MaxLPQueen here. Welcome back to another episode of our Pokemon Emerald Randomizer Nuzlocke Speedrun. Have not been playing these games for a really long time because I've been in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire mode, and you guys haven't seen very many videos on the channel, mostly because I've been playing Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Well, I've been playing Alpha Sapphire, and my boyfriend has been playing Omega Ruby. Almost lost my train of thought there. Cats are playing in the background, so if you hear something, you know what it is. But in the last episode, we took on Team Magma, and I actually remembered that I had to walk all the way to Slatebrook City to do this little cutscene here with Captain Stern, I believe. And then Team Aqua is going to take his submarine and head back to Lily Cove City, which I did remember that I have to go all the way back to Lily Cove City as well. So since I caught the Yanma, I thought, why not go ahead and see if Yanma can learn fly, and that way we'd be able to fly back a lot quicker. But unfortunately, Yanma can't learn fly. You'll see here in a minute that he's not able to learn fly, and I don't want to teach it to Latios, so I do have to make the long trek back to Lily Cove City, so you will be seeing a cut here in a minute as we make our way back. And I mentioned a few episodes ago that one of the episodes is really long, and one is really short. Well, the last one was really long. This one is really short, only a 10-minute video. So we're going to jump right in here to reading the rest of this article, and then we'll go ahead and talk about it. So we left off talking about how older gamers might not want to buy these new games because they don't want to learn the new mechanics. So now we're going to read on here, and it says, despite its humorously over-the-top name, it's here that Satoru Iwata's same-generation hypothesis makes a great deal of sense. The reasoning is relatively simple, explaining below, and helps to explain why Oris, they're going to use Oris instead of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire because it's shorter, is largely matching or beating pre-order levels for X and Y. The upcoming releases are actually way ahead in Europe in logic that's also attributed to Super Smash Bros. It's all about hitting an audience that grew up with classics and now has the earning power and disposable income to relive those memories. And he says, those who were elementary school students when Super Smash Bros. Melee and Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire were released have grown up and are now 18 to 25 years old. Our research in each part of the world commonly indicates that consumers between the age of 18 and 25 represent a large percentage of those who purchased Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS in the release period. It is approximately 30% in Japan, which is twice the overall average of Nintendo 3DS software, and has even reached 50% in the US and Europe. This great momentum for the game in the initial stage was supported by this generation. Thanks to Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS, consumers of this generation pay more attention to Nintendo 3DS and are likely to remember enjoying Pokemon Ruby and Pokemon Sapphire. We think this is why the pre-orders for Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire have been strong. They are now old enough to pay for their own expenses. They can't afford to buy Nintendo 3DS to enjoy both Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS and Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, if they choose, and they might encourage their friends to play it with them too. We therefore see it important to stimulate their latent demand in the year-end sales season. Taking into account both the trend of pre-orders and the same generation hypothesis, we anticipate that Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire to be released next month will have more sales potential than just another remade game in the industry. The theory certainly seems more applicable to Oris. It perhaps also explains why calls for current-day releases of older Pokemon games from the original Game Boy and Game Boy Color era fall on deaf ears. Those older titles were enjoyed by a group that are now a bit older and likely juggling, in many cases, careers and families. It's tempting to look at the compelling argument made by Iwata-san and acknowledge that, as is often the case despite fans sometimes believing otherwise, Nintendo has a cohesive plan to ensure success. After playing our share of relatively minor upgrades in remasters over the past year, PS4 owners know that we are talking about. It's also worth acknowledging that GameFreak had a lot of work to do with Oris. We're looking at remakes of original games with 2D pixel-based visuals and link cable connectivity in their Game Boy Advance guises. In one respect, the task has been simplified by the option to simply utilize the tools and features included in X and Y. Yet on the other hand, the whole environment, new mon, and features to represent equivalent on the Game Boy Advance have been developed. It's all about adding more depth, not just literally with auto stereoscope 3D in battles. That wasn't possible before. As when I started at GameFreak, Ruby and Sapphire were my first project, so obviously there are a lot of ideas that I had at the time, but didn't get into the final game. A lot of things for the story, for example, that I hope to explore more in depth, finally taking those ideas and getting a chance to implement them and go into depth with them years after it began, is what the creator says. And then we get back here to the article. While the similarities to X and Y will be obvious for those with golden memories of the originals, or should feel both nostalgic and fresh. It's not an unfamiliar approach for Nintendo, with an example being The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. Though not a remake, it tickled nostalgia with a faithful recreation of the Hyrule scene in A Link to the Past. The difference in these Pokemon games won't be as pronounced, perhaps, but the promise of all new scenarios and story elements along with all those modern touches takes them well beyond the upscale and push it out of the door approach. Overall, with the integration of X and Y in the new games as another feature, it seems that Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are destined to push the buttons of nostalgic fans alike. Whether their sales match X and Y will be interesting to see, though it seems a safe bet to be one of the biggest success stories on 3DS. We shall see. But Nintendo's rich history, particularly with GameFreak and Pokemon, suggests that a year cycle of releases isn't off the cards. With the continuing success of the series, there will be an applicable same-generation hypothesis for a good few years yet. And that is it for the Nintendo Life article. So, that was a lot of information, but basically, summing it up, he's just saying that people are going to be drawn towards these games because they were drawn towards the older versions of the games, and they want that nostalgic feel. They want that feeling of, yes, I played these games before, now I want to play them again, and I want to see just how awesome these games can be. But, for me, that's the same thing, you know, I'm the same way. I played the old games, I'm playing them right now, and I'm playing the new games right now, and there's a big difference, obviously, but still, same concept, same rules, it's all the same. Basically, we know what to expect, but we will still be surprised at what's to come in the future. That's going to do it for that article, and it's going to do it for this episode pretty much too. We are almost at our 10-minute mark here, and we have just defeated Team Aqua, but unfortunately Archie has ran off in his ship, and we will have to follow him out to sea, but we are going to do that in the next episode. We are going to make our way to Moss Deep City in the next episode. We are, though, going to catch our Pokemon here on Route 124, because I know that we can catch a new Pokemon in this route, so we're going to catch one. Igglybuff is one that we've already caught, so we are not going to catch that one. And Ladian, of course, we already caught. Am lost. Why do you taunt me, Ladian? Why do you taunt me? But we can catch this Quagsire, so we're going to go ahead and catch this Quagsire. And in the next episode, I believe it's quite a long episode, because we're going to do all of our catching in the next episode, I believe, on all the routes. Before we get into taking on the Moss Deep Gym Leaders, I believe we're just going to go ahead and catch all the Pokemon we can catch on the routes. We make our way all the way through to, oh goodness, I can't remember the name, Pacific Lodge Town, I believe, Pacific Log, but we make it all the way through there, and we got our Quagsire here, who I guess I might could check out. He is a brave nature, which is increased attack and decreased speed. But he does have damp though, which is actually pretty good. Nobody can self-destruct on us. Like this electrode that we also caught. I didn't mention it because I was reading the article, but in the video we did catch the electrode, who's also brave nature. And we caught that as the Team Aqua base encounter, if you want to call it that. But that's going to do it for this episode, guys. I will see you in the next episode. Later!